out, everyone? It's Jacqueline here from Nothing But Tech. I hope you guys are all doing well. Welcome back to another video. In today's video, we're talking about the Samsung Galaxy Note 10 Plus and comparing it to the camera on the Pixel 4 XL. So going forward in this video, I'm going to refer to the Pixel 4 XL as the Pixel 4 as they pack the same cameras. But let's dive right in with this first image test of portrait mode. Looking at this first image, there definitely is a lot of skin smoothing and general softness going on the Note 10, but the Pixel 4 over sharpens my face and kind of creates like digital blemishes, like things that weren't really there or prominent, but then when there was so much sharpness added, they kind of showed up. So it's obviously like not that flattering. However, the Note 10 Plus looks like you went ham in Facetune, so that's not great either. So I would kind of love if like they met in the middle. And in terms of like continuing on with the skin theme, my skin looks a little bit gray on the Pixel 4. The Pixel 4 tends to gray out my skin a lot of times when it's trying to expose both the foreground and the background, so that is not ideal, but it does do a really great job with exposure. If you look at the back, the white door border on the Pixel 4 looks better than it does on the Note 10. It's not as blown out. I would love to see better skin tones on the Pixel 4 while still keeping that great dynamic range that the Pixel 4 does have. The second image shows a massive lens flare on the Note 10 where the Pixel 4 does not have that. The Pixel 4 also looks a little bit more contrasty to me, which I don't always love, but in this particular scenario, I definitely do. We're speeding through these, but staying with that same water, I zoomed in on the telephoto lens, so they're both taken at 2x zoom. And the shutter must have been pretty slow in the Note 10 because it wasn't able to capture the motion in the same way that the Pixel 4 was. The Pixel 4 is a little bit blurry as well, but the shutter seems to have been a little bit faster because it feels like it froze the motion a little bit better in that scenario when compared to the Note 10 Plus. Otherwise, the telephoto images look pretty good, but the Note 10 Plus has a wide-angle camera. Pixel 4 does not. That, for real, is a bummer. Like, I am so disappointed that it doesn't have a wide camera. Google addressed that right at the keynote, saying that they know the ultra-wide is fun, but they feel like the telephoto is more useful. And I'm just thinking, why not both? So I'm a little bummed about that. Obviously, the Google Pixel has a great camera setup overall, as you're going to continue seeing in this video, but it's just kind of a bummer that it doesn't have that wide-angle lens because it adds so much more context to images. Like the Note 10, when you zoom out, it leads to an interesting perspective and you can get more in the frame. And not just in this scenario, but in a bunch of different scenarios, the ultra-wide proves to be very useful. So I would love to see that on the next Pixel. It's definitely a pro of the Note 10 Plus and definitely a con of the Pixel 4 that it doesn't have it. The Note 10 wide camera is not as sharp as the standard camera, but it's still just nice to have. I would love to see an equal amount of sharpness. Like, you definitely notice not only a color shift, but also a sharpness decrease when you go out wide. But in this particular scenario, I actually prefer the wide image because it doesn't have as much of like that hazy lens flare look. All right, so moving on to the next image. This is a portrait mode test again of me against like this green background. And there's definitely a softness again on the Note 10 Plus. The Note 10 Plus also has a little bit of like overexposed look on my nose, but I also took these photos, like I was standing at slightly different angles, so I don't know like if that kind of discredits that a little bit. I think it may. But what isn't something that was affected by my pose is the background blur. I feel like out of camera, the Pixel 4 over blurred the background. It looks a little bit fake, almost like I'm photoshopped into the photo, although I was there. That's something that we see a lot when we look at portrait mode on phones. They kind of overdo it. And it makes it look like you photoshopped yourself into something. So that's something to note. The Note 10 Plus definitely looks a little bit more realistic here. Image number 6, I saw this railing and I thought it'd be perfect test for detail and also exposure. I'm testing out a ton of dynamic range, and I'm doing that because I feel like dynamic range is like one of the most important things about a camera. If it can perform well in like a bunch of different lighting scenarios, you typically have a pretty good camera on your hands. So in this one, they both actually did really well with the lighting. That's great to see. I think I like the Pixel 4 a little bit better because it's a little bit more contrasty and the actual railing is sharper, but they're kind of neck and neck in this one. Then I took a photo of my feet, and I did that because I was wearing white shoes and I thought I had like this intuition that they would have a little bit of trouble with it. And my intuition proved true in the Note 10 Plus. It blew out on my left shoe, the top portion of it, but on the Pixel 4, it held its ground and it didn't blow it out. The Pixel 4 also has like this dual exposure mode where you can adjust the exposure of two different parts of the image. I didn't do that in this video just for consistency because I wanted to show what you would get right out of camera, like in auto mode without adjusting like focus or exposure or stuff like that. but obviously that feature can be there for you, and if you want to see a more detailed test of that, let me know with a comment. And before we move on to the next image, I feel like I gotta tell you, if you're not subscribed yet, you gotta get on that because there's a lot of content coming. So it would mean a lot to me. Be sure to hit that subscribe button. Maybe even hit that bell too because there's just like a ton of content on the way for you. Okay, so the next image, it's of like this doorway in the same area. And the Note 10 definitely has a cooler tone when compared to the Pixel 4. I did this test to see how it would handle the different lighting scenarios, like inside is darker than the outside light that's hitting the doorway, and they both did a pretty good job, but the Note 10 is definitely on a more cool side compared to the Pixel 4, and the Pixel 4 is a little bit warmer. The scene is honestly kind of somewhere in the middle. It's not as warm as the Pixel 4 is making it out to be, but it's also not as cool as the Note 10 is making it out to be. In this next image, I definitely prefer the Note 10. This image was taken like for texture to see how it performed, and the Note 10 just has more texture in the rocks. This image is not like perfectly framed, but I don't think that has an effect on the texture. So I'm not going to comment on lighting in this image, but just pure like sharpness. I think the Note 10 did a better job here. Okay, so selfies. They're not my forte, but I know a lot of you really like them, so I decided to include one. They both did a pretty good job, although the Pixel 4 is a better image here if you're planning on taking a lot of group shots, because with that 90-degree field of view lens, it's wider than when I go to the wide option on the Note 10. You can get more in the frame. They both struggled a little bit with the tiles in the back and blew them out, but they handled the subject, which was me, very well. So I feel like it's a pretty good photo. It was kind of a tough lighting scenario. I don't blame it that much. Well, it would have been nice to have some detail in the tiles in the back for a selfie, right? Like you're just gonna post this on what, like Snapchat or Instagram? It's probably fine. I also tend to prefer my skin tone on the Note 10, but it is definitely softer than the Pixel 4, which I'm not a huge fan of. The next test is another dynamic range test, and it feels like there's a little bit more detail on the Pixel 4 than the Note 10, and the exposure is slightly better in the sunspot right before the white car on the Pixel 4. So the Pixel 4, in terms of dynamic range, did the best here. And I think that has a lot to do with the Pixel 4's HDR Plus mode. It's just really good. The images don't always look amazing from the get-go, but after they process, that's when they really come alive. Google's computational photography is great. The Google Pixel 4 is definitely more of a software-based camera than a hardware-based camera. The software is kind of where it comes alive, and that's a good thing because that means that the camera will keep getting better and better as more software updates come through. So I'm actually really happy that the results are more based on software than hardware. Okay, so the next image is another portrait mode test, and as I said in the past, I think that portrait mode tests are amazing because you can not only test out edge detection and general sharpness of a subject in relation to its background, but you can also test out so many other aspects of what makes a photo good, like exposure, contrast, dynamic range, so it kind of gets it all into one sample. And they both actually did pretty good here. The edge detection on the Note 10 is much better, with the spot in between my leg and my left arm being blurred out, whereas the Pixel 4 did not fully blur it out. But the softness on my face is a little bit too much. Like, it looks really edited, but the Pixel 4 is sharpened a little bit too much. So I would kind of like, again, something kind of in the middle. Portrait mode of a non-human subject reveals that they both do pretty well with it. Portrait mode is mainly used for people, but I would love portrait mode to kind of get better for non-human subjects as well. This one was kind of an easy one for the cameras to do because the edges are pretty straightforward, but I kind of wanted to get better at crazy subjects as well, like things that have like jagged edges and stuff. But here on this typical sign, they did pretty well. The Note 10, it goes a little bit to a cooler tone, and it also did not fully blur out the speaker grills above the sign. So the Pixel 4 did better with edge detection, but it's pretty close. All right, the second to last test of this video is a photo of me without portrait mode on, because of course we take a lot of those as well. And there are definitely blown out highlights on my face on the Note 10, but my stance again was a little bit different here, so that may have affected it. However, in terms of sharpness, that wouldn't have been affected by my stance, and there definitely is more sharpness on the Pixel 4, kind of similar to what I said before, but I think that I prefer the Pixel 4 in this scenario. Okay, so then the last test of this video is a video test, and I did not really go video heavy in this video. If you want to see like a more video centric comparison, let me know with a comment below. But for now, this is the only one in this video, and it's of that water, and there definitely is more of a flare on the Note 10, which is not great, but you do have an option to go wide in the video, which is great. So that makes me prefer the Note 10 for video stuff, just for that reason. But in terms of like colors, I think that the Pixel 4 looks a little bit better, and it adds in some contrast, which also looks better. That's it though for these samples. I also did not include night samples in this video just because the Pixel has so many major improvements to its night mode that I feel like it deserved its own video and its own in-depth testing. So that's probably coming soon as well. But thank you for watching this one. I would love to hear your thoughts nicely in the comments below, but I would love to hear them. Subscribe right here so you don't miss any other content. You seriously should. There should be a lot coming. Check out another video right here, and I'll catch you in the next one. Thank you so much for watching this one. Thank you for your time. I'll see you later. All right? Bye.